Welcome everybody, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to this council meeting. Welcome to councillors, welcome to the media, welcome to staff, and whether there are any members of the public. Thank you. Welcome, Nick. So this is the LGFA proposal, Local Government Funding Agency option, and Nick, we're essentially in your hands. Thank you for the report. It outlines why we're doing this, the financial benefits, etc., etc. Is there anything that you want to, by introducing the report, is there anything you want to comment on?
No, as you said, this is outlining the proposal to join the LGFA. So there's a bit of background there, and if you there's background, then there's about the LGFA, and then some analysis on the various funding borrowing options, and then if you get through to page 7 of your agenda, it has the proposal and the three outlines, the three options that we've considered, which is basically around joining the LGFA as a guaranteeing member, joining as a non-guaranteeing member, or not joining at all. And then we've put the preferred option as joining as a guaranteeing member for two reasons. One, as outlined in the long-term plan, we're proposing to replace internal debt with external debt. The quantum of that is greater than $20 million, which is the threshold for being a non-guaranteeing member. And regardless of whether the amount borrowed, which can still be determined later, if it was less than 20 million, by going through this process and joining as a guaranteeing member, you've got the option to borrow more at a later date if the initial view was not to borrow the above the 20 million amount. So from here, the key bit there, page 7 on, it's got the proposal and the three options. That information will form the nucleus of a consultation document which will go out. Comms is preparing that, and we'd be looking to have that out next week. Obviously, as outlined, we have to consult because of the issue around the LGFA being a CCTO. So we'll be out with a consultation online, essentially, will be advertised as well, but pushing people to online to submit. It'll be out for a month, and then we've proposed for the co-chairs of the Finance Committee to form a hearings panel if there is anybody who wishes to be heard on the matter. So that's the outline. From there, assuming that we've been through the consultation, then it comes back to council with a recommendation on whether to continue and join or not.
And also you've got the Treasury management policy attached and the appropriate amendments that are required because of this process.
Yeah, so that was marked up. You'll see there's quite a lot of amendments which just aligns to allow things. The two key things are that it has allows the LGFA as a permitted investment, and which it wasn't previously. So that needs to be noted, and just the borrower limits or the covenants are aligned to what the LGFA requires. Ours were very similar; they just needed a slight tweak on those covenants around the percentage of rates and total revenue.
And you've also got the statement of investment policy and objectives. Does that sit inside the TMP? Does it?
Yeah. So the Treasury management policy incorporates the SIPO, and it also incorporates the liability policy or as well. So it's sort of an amalgamation of all of our Treasury policy functions.
And that latter document doesn't need to be noted separately in the recommendations because the TMP covers both. Yep.
Yeah, it incorporates the SIPO. Yep.
Good, Scott. Questions, Michael?
I haven't got a question, but I'd like to move all the recommendations.
Excellent. Thank you.
This is an idea whose time has well and truly come.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Seconded by Gary. I'll just go back just to check there's no questions. Brian?
Yeah, look,
Would you turn your microphone on, please, Brian? Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah, look, this is the first time that we've looked externally for financials, and it's just some reassurance or some understanding about that 25 million and how it balances with maybe the reserves that we currently have, any type of ratio or liquid reserves, or just any comments in relation. We take and as the council's assets, so maybe it's the 25 million in relation to our assets, so that we can take some comfort, or the community can take some comfort that that what we're doing is not unreasonable. So any comment on that is in terms of that ratio and just feeling comfortable?
Yeah, so it's not the first time that council's got external debt. Council did get external debt, obviously back before my time, but borrowed externally for to fund the stadium roof, and paid that back.
Point taken.
So that has been done before. I think that loan might have had did it have a 5-year term? It was either 3 or 5. I think it was 5. So it's not the first time that's been done. 25 million, the external, is being worked out based on what the internal borrowing is. There is a requirement there. One of the covenants is around a liquidity ratio, which ensures that council still maintains liquidity. So council currently has, obviously has the managed fund, and although one of the options was not to join the LGFA, that would then mean that we could then potentially look at, if we didn't want any borrowing at all, could look at utilising the managed fund, or what we are going to be doing over the next few months before any other facilities in place is we'd be using a short-term debt facility, and basically an overdraft.
So remind us, how much is the managed fund?
So the managed fund is, I haven't looked at it, what it currently is today, but last time it was around about 24 million.
Yeah.
So one of the things with maintaining the debt or the debt covenant is a liquidity ratio, means that you've still got to maintain liquid assets of 110%, which is either you either have assets that you can liquidate, or you have lending facilities in place. So obviously, with having the managed fund, where our liquidity ratio is going to sit well below that. You've also got the other debt amount. So the total debt can't exceed 175% of revenue. So the covenants are put in place to make sure that council doesn't overextend its debt position. And the 25%, the 25 million is basically very low in all of those covenants.
So, for example, the total reserves that we currently have is,
this is where
non-allocated.
Well, it depends on whether you're looking at what the total amount is or what we've got in cash, because our reserves that we've got really are only equal to the amount of cash that we've got. And currently we've got 24 million, and we've got another 8 million in our current accounts. But the 8 million will basically, the majority of that will be gone by the end of this month. So then we're into utilising the overdraft. So although we could go, we've got reserves, the general reserve in theory is higher than that amount, but really it's only a reserve in the sense that you've got the cash to actually draw on and spend.
Thank you, Hilary. Then Michael Laws.
I just wanted to speak to, is that time?
Okay, I'll just check. No more questions, Michael Laws?
Are we borrowing internally before we use this provision? So if we've got whatever it is in reserves, $25 million, are we going to borrow that money before we borrow anything from the LGFA?
The idea is that the 25 million, will allow us to still maintain the long-term managed fund, Yeah, but
You're not going to touch the long-term managed fund then?
no, because the long
Because
term,
that's making you more money than the cost of borrowing.
exactly.
Okay, so the total cost is, the total value to us, you estimated about $1.5 million over 10 years, is that right?
Yep.
That's the savings to us.
That's the savings of borrowing, of borrowing from the LGFA versus getting some
Borrowing from
sort of
banks.
bank funding.
Yeah. The one thing that's missing here, but you'll be able to tell me, the exposure to risk. There's some bald figures there about how much money they are, but they're lending only to local government in New Zealand? Or are they also lending to entities like holding companies and council-owned corporates and things like that as well?
Yeah, they can lend to, for example, they could lend to our port, but we would have to guarantee that loan. Yeah, so if there's any lending going through to holding companies, it's guaranteed by the councils themselves.
Right.
So that particular council guarantees their own CCTO debt first.
So we'll go to debate now, moved by Michael Deaker, seconded by Gary. Speakers, Hillary.
I'm in favour of where we're going here. In general terms, it provides flexibility for us. It allows us to have more transparency with our jam jars, namely to borrow money at the cheapest, most reasonable rate for the reserves we want, instead of swapping sort of things around under walnuts and finding out where the money's disappeared to later. I mean, obviously Nick's got a good handle on that, but it, to me, gives us more accountability, more transparency. It's not a huge amount that we would be proposing to borrow from there, but it's the cheapest way for us to borrow, and we should be always doing it the cheapest way we can. I'm not concerned personally about that we're guaranteeing other ones, because the government's got enough skin in the game and things, so as that it would need more than one kaipara to cause any mischief to the fund as it is. If there was big amounts of borrowings proposed, I would expect that we would look first to the assets we've got through Chalmers Properties, then borrowing heaps of money in another way, because we've got some reasonably liquid assets in Chalmers Properties. And I'm not talking about the Port Otago operations here, I'm talking about the property portfolio we have through Port Otago. But all in all, good scheme, good plan. Thanks to Mr. Donnelly for bringing that to us.
Thank you. Gary.
Yeah, same. Very much in support of this. I think it's an absolute no-brainer. Often said around central government and its ability to raise capital at much lower levels than everybody else. This fund creates that opportunity. That 1.722 million, otherwise we'd be paying to an Australian bank. So that is true savings to Otago by doing this. We're also showing sound, prudent financial management in that over a 10-year period, we're looking for that debt to reduce from 25 to 15 million. So well done, Nick, for a good report, and good move forward for the ORC.
Michael, you had anything to say as the mover?
Endorse everything that's been said.
Okay, no further discussion. If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And I was supposed to do apologies at the front end of this meeting. And obviously there weren't any apologies, but I didn't run through the agenda. So I should just, if I can find the report. So I just run through, there were no apologies today, confirmation of the agenda, there was no changes, reminder about the conflict of interest that everyone needs to be aware of individually. And that concludes the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance. My understanding is our next 1:30 in here for
Data
the
information.
data and information, or is it the workshop?
Yeah.
Customer experience briefing at 1:30.